hope you all are doing way better than I am today. So I'm currently on my way into the hospital. No need for alarm. I'm not dying this time. Mint is the only thing keeping me from throwing up in the car, so if it annoys you, I would apologize, but I really don't fucking care right now. How's that for an answer? I have a level 2 ultrasound that I need to do to help the diagnostic process for my surgery, for my laparoscopic surgery in March, so that they're not just like super surprised when they cut me open and they look inside and they're like, whoa, what the fuck is going on in here? So the difference between a level 1 and a level 2 ultrasound is usually the person running the ultrasound machine and how sensitive the ultrasound machine is. So your regular level 1 ultrasounds are what most people have encountered throughout their lives, because that's usually all you need. But because endometriosis sucks so fucking hard and is so fucking small in most cases, not only do we need special doctors and special technicians to diagnose, and our technicians are actually usually double as specialist doctors because that's all we got. We also need special machinery because we're fucking special. It's great. So I will be taking you with me, but not throughout the entire procedure, because I'm sure I will not be able to film in the hospital. They don't usually like that. I will ask, but the answer is usually no. Regardless, this is to prep. So I'm supposed to be getting a laparoscopic diagnostic surgery / excision surgery to excise the rest of the endo in March, but like I said, so they don't open me up and go, holy fuck, what's going on in here? This is what's going to give them a better idea of how long they're going to need to be in there, how long I'm going to need to be out for, probably roughly how long my recovery is going to be, what's been damaged, what hasn't been damaged, how badly somewhat it's been damaged, not completely how badly. They won't really fully know until they actually go in there, but it gives them a better idea of what they're going to be looking at in terms of how many doctors are going to need, how much time she's going to need to book in the OR, etc., etc. Once the results for this come in, my doctor is going to call me and let me know what's going on. In case you're wondering what I wear to these things: tights, loose band t-shirt, sweater. I'm probably going to be bleeding for a few days after this. I'm going to be in pain. They like to claim that it's not that invasive and it's not that painful, but for somebody who lives with what I live with, and for somebody who's already in severe amounts of pain all the time, when you upset the balance of the system in which the endometriosis is in, it has a tendency to flare up. And doing this is going to do that. So, yay. That's going to be nice and flared up for me for the next couple days at least. I have taken a few precautions, aka extra pain meds for this. So anyway, that's what's going on. I will let you know what they have to say, because that's what half my channel's for. In case you guys are wondering what the preparation for a level 2 internal gynecological ultrasound, that's the word I was looking for, it's one fleet enema. And as much as everyone's like, oh, well, it's better than sitting there having to pee yourself the whole time, I'd rather sit there and have to pee myself the whole time. It hurts me way less than the one enema does, because my intestines, I already know, are somewhat damaged by the endo. We don't know how damaged, and we're not really going to truly know how damaged until a surgeon goes in there. But it flares up my intestinal endo so much that, like, right now I would rather just be curled up in bed with my heating pad on, literally anything else, because I'm in not a good place right now physically, and I'm very anxious right now mentally. So that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go, and I will update you once I am done, I guess, because once I'm done. We shall see. Fingers crossed I don't feel like I'm going to die this time, because the last time I did and I needed to be sedated, and then they basically refused to sedate me and only gave me like an IV of like bullshit pain meds that don't do anything, and all they did was make me really sick, and then I was just in a lot of pain. So fingers crossed I don't need to be sedated, and fingers crossed I don't need to worry about it. So yeah, that's what I'm in for today. Fun. Not really. I fucking hate it. Really sucks. It's my least favorite ever. Said every woman with endo. Every time they have to do this. I swear to God. And I will see you guys later. Good afternoon, boils and ghouls. This is going to be like a bit of an extension onto last week's vlog, which I never really ended out because it's taken me a bit of time to process the information that was given to me from my ultrasound. So it's been just over a week and a half, a week and a bit, and it was an interesting day. Let's go with that. There were some really high highs and some really low lows involved in that. And the only way for me to explain that is for me to walk you through the ultrasound and what happened, and kind of explain to you why I feel the way I do about each little bit and piece of it. So my ultrasound was conducted at first by a technician who was very well trained. She was a very lovely lady, actually. She was really calming and very understanding and understanding of my situation, which is something even in the medical community that people like me don't actually get a lot of. So she conducted the initial ultrasound screening. We did an external screening, like a regular ultrasound, to check and make sure like all of my organs are where they're supposed to be and there's no like crazy immediate scarring that could be seen, and everything looked pretty good from there. And then we did a transvaginal ultrasound, which is an internal ultrasound. For all of you women out there who've had one of those, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's those ultrasounds with that lovely wand that they put that freaking plastic over, that's cold and hard and really uncomfortable and super not fucking fun, but it is necessary. And I understand that, and I had no problem with it. So she conducted one of those as well. And then a very lovely doctor. She is one of our leading endometriosis diagnosticians across Canada. And she is within the top 5, I believe, in Ontario. If not the top 5. Like the number 1 diagnostician in Ontario for endometriosis. She has been a doctor that specializes in endometriosis for a very, very long time. And she is absolutely wonderful. She's very soft-spoken, and she explains everything as she goes, and there's no questions, there's nothing left like unsaid with her. She's really good at showing you what she's found and what all of those things mean, and And so she came in after the technician and also did a transvaginal ultrasound. She did not feel the need to do an external ultrasound just because it's not how she diagnoses. This doctor actually is the doctor who originally diagnosed me with endometriosis 5 years ago through an MRI that I had done that she read and sent back to my doctors. It was done with contrast, and she was very adamant in that point in time that I definitely had endometriosis and there should be no question about it. And yet still, since then, I have had doctors question. Regardless, the doctor that I have now, the specialist that I have now, does not question. She knows her personally and thinks that she is absolutely lovely, and she's apparently a very skilled and understanding surgeon, so that is good to know. So she did my second transvaginal ultrasound that day and found some really deep nodes within my uterus, which we're going to hope to remove. But she also found some other things. And these are the things that I've been having trouble processing. Let's go with that. It's not necessarily that I wasn't expecting it, as it is, where do we go from here? So she found that my right ovary was basically immobile. You should be able to maneuver them around without any issue. Well, my left ovary, no problem. Free movement, not an issue whatsoever. My right ovary, on the other hand, not so much. So I've had issues with my right ovary for a really long time. 90% of my pain stems from my right side. This has been discussed with several doctors over the years. It's the side that I always grow cysts on. It's that side of my body. I don't know what else to say. And so when she went in, she found that it was pretty immobile. On top of that, she also found my appendix to be in a slightly weird place in comparison to where I guess it would generally supposed to be. So I guess from certain perspectives, which does make sense to me based off of how your anatomy sits, based off certain perspectives within your body, an ultrasound should not be able to pick up your appendix on your right side from certain angles. Unfortunately for me, my appendix actually came out in like a really weird position in a really weird place where she shouldn't have been able to see it from, but could, like, clearly see it. And the reason behind that we've discovered is that my right ovary has now fused itself to my appendix via endometrial growth that should not be there, and has thus then fused both of those organs to the back of my pelvic wall on my right side, which is another reason why they are both extremely immobile and why my appendix is showing in a really weird place, in a really weird position that it shouldn't be in. So I went in kind of assuming that we were going to find something not great on the right-hand side, but I was not expecting it to be that far gone. I was told by a doctor less than 2 years ago that I didn't need to worry about those things because I was taking my Vizan, which is a progesterone, which is supposed to keep the endometriosis from growing at a rapid rate. However, clearly that's not doing its fucking job very well, now is it? Because that was less than 2 years ago that I was told, no, don't worry about it, it's fine, and now everything has fused itself together with tissue that shouldn't be there in the first place. So that's great. Which ultimately means, which I was already pushing for, but still, which ultimately means I'm going to be losing my right ovary and my appendix. I was going to be losing my appendix regardless because it just happens to be within the proximity of where a lot of endometrial tissue grows if you have endometriosis, and therefore can cause a lot of pain and a lot of issues. It can be removed with, little to no repercussion. So we had discussed, my specialist and I had discussed going in and removing that, and I said, sure, no problem, sounds good. And at the time, she was considering keeping the right ovary because at that time we did not realize how bad that was. Well, I'm definitely losing that. There's not going to be an option, a choice to keep that, because when they remove the appendix and they remove all of the tissue surrounding it, there will be adhesions and scarring, and it's not going to be worth it to keep it. The other thing I found out, which is the thing I think that has had the biggest blow, the biggest issue, I guess, in my mind for me to process, is that my uterus is not looking so good. For the longest time with my endometriosis, my uterus seemed to be remotely untouched, which is actually kind of unheard of and super lucky. And quite frankly, I was just thanking the universe that was not a thing in my life. Unfortunately, that's not the fucking truth anymore. So the truth is, my endometrial scarring is actually sitting on the inside of the lining of my uterus. So in a lot of cases, they'll find like nodules or scarring or whatever growing inside the uterus where they can remove it. They can just cut it out and remove it. Well, she's found all of the scarring, but the actual scar tissue is not on the surface of the inside of my uterus where it can be easily cut out and removed. It's actually within the uterine wall, which means if my surgeon goes in and sees that it's clearly going to continue to be a massive problem, I will be, at the age of 32, losing my uterus, which is not something I had planned on. It's not what I had originally wanted. And it's been difficult for me to process that. And part of the biggest reason for me why I'm having such a hard time processing it is because of this. It's this sentence that I hear 99% of my life. But every time I explain to somebody what my disease is, that has made me want to fight so hard to keep my uterus for as long as I possibly can. And this is it. Why don't you just get a hysterectomy? Sounds like that'll cure you. Well, one, it fucking won't. So knock that shit off and don't be that person. Do not be that person in somebody else's life to suggest that as a form of treatment, because it's not. It's not. Knock it off. It's obnoxious and it's uneducated and it's just stupid. And two, like I said, I'm 32. If I lose my uterus and an ovary, the only thing that I have left is my other ovary. Can you see my point here? And my fallopian tubes, obviously, but that's kind of a moot point. They're kind of pointless once the uterus is removed, so I'm not really, So that to me is why it's taken me so long to finish this video so that you guys can actually see it. Because it's actually been kind of a bit of a roller coaster for me to come to terms with what I was told. Now, the elation portion of that day was the validation that was given to me for the first time in 20 years. I've been having symptoms of endometriosis since I was 12. And being 32, being able to do basic math, only on my good days, means I have been fighting this for 20 years. I have been asking for help dealing with this for 2 decades. And only just now am I finding people willing to do so. On top of that, I found 2 people within the medical community in one day, in one appointment, who were more than willing to validate not just my diagnosis, but the struggle that I have lived with for 20 years of my life, which is more than the majority of my life, in case the math is not sinking in. And to me, that is unheard of. Statistically, it's unheard of. And realistically speaking, for most women in my position, it's really unheard of. So that was a huge win for me. It was a massive win for me to know that I had two very capable people within the medical community who do this on a daily basis, on a regular basis, who were willing to take my life and how this has affected it into consideration when dealing with diagnosing. And that is very rare, if not pretty much just completely unheard of. So for me, that was huge. Just the validation that I got out of talking to them, out of them listening to my story, out of them telling me to keep writing and keep vlogging and keep producing the amount of awareness that I can, because of the fact that I have a very good understanding of where I come from and the disease itself, and that according to this doctor who is like literally revered in this community, to be articulate enough to explain to other people where I'm coming from was amazing for me. It was a good day in general, but the information given to me was shit, which is what I expected. The only really good thing that's come out of it is the fact that we can, without a reasonable doubt, scratch right off the table, right off the bat, that I do not have any form of cancer caused by this disease, which can happen. The only other thing that I'm having issues with right now, processing in general, is the fact that my intestines, which we know I have endo growing on my small intestine, is still kind of a crapshoot. With the ultrasound, there was no way to tell how bad it is, how far gone it is, where it is, or whether or not it's grown on the inside of my intestines or made its way into my intestines. I have a great number of digestive issues due to this disease. And because of that, we are going to have a gastric surgeon on hand when I go in for my surgery. Hopefully that will still be in March. I haven't got a date yet, but when I get one, you'll all know. There will be a gastric surgeon on hand because we don't know how far gone that has gotten. I could still potentially be losing a portion of my intestinal tract, and we don't know if I'm going to, or how much of it, or what's happening with that yet. So the unknown when it comes to that is still pretty terrifying for me. And the rest of it is just, it's just shitty. Like, it's just mentally hard to deal with the fact that your own body is literally attacking itself, and there is nothing that anybody can do to fix that. So that's what happened. That's what I found out. It's not super great. It's not the worst, but it's not super great. And so it's taken me a little bit to just kind of go over everything and mentally section every little piece of information that I was given off and process it appropriately so that my brain can handle everything that is occurring at this point in time. It hasn't been easy. I won't lie. I feel like, to me, hysterectomy has never been an option. Not because I plan on having more children, because the one that I have right now is already a miracle child, but just because it's not a cure and it's not a treatment option. And so for me, it's never been an option on the table to fall to the masses of, well, why don't you just get a hysterectomy? And then obviously, all of a sudden, everybody around me will think I'm cured, which I'm not. And I won't be, even if that's done. But I won't even know if I'm losing my uterus until after the surgery is over. That's where I stand. And I will talk to you guys all later. Do not forget, as per usual, to like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear more tales from the Crypt Keeper, because it's Halloween season. So there will be other fun shit going on other than just, what's happening inside my uterus. This just happened to fall within that season. Sorry. There's nothing I could do about it. Oh, the only other thing I had to say is you are way stronger than you could ever fathom being, especially in your moment of weakness. If I can get through all of this and still be standing and able to express to other people how important it is to keep going, so can you. Because this has not been a fun ride. It's been a long 20 years in the making. And even still, we're nowhere close to being done. So don't forget. Don't you ever forget. You can tackle anything you put your mind to at any point in time. I will talk to you guys all later. And I will see you probably next week. Bye.